what was the problem that you saw in the marketplace where you said, I need to be involved in this organization that is solving this problem, and I want to be a part of that solution?
So it's interesting. I've done CRM for so long. The companies I've been associated with have been, ethical, hardworking, customer focused, all the things you'd want them to be. But we didn't solve the main two problems at CRM, why people buy CRM. One is adoption. The second part of this is how do you drive performance and predictability? And so the thing that drew me to Sales Optimizer was that's their expertise. They're a training and performance company that learned that without CRM and the ability to measure what they're coming out of it, there is no ability to drive adoption and predictability.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for another Growth Secrets interview. I'm here today with John Sisson of Sales Optimizer. John is he's a Salesforce guy. Like me, we've both spent our time in the trenches, but he's really focused on helping businesses grow by improving their sales and marketing. So this is going to be a great conversation, packed full of useful takeaways. So I'm excited about it. Without further ado, thanks so much for joining us, John.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's brought you to this point in your career?
So I guess I'm a 20-year vet of CRM. I've been doing it almost since the inception of CRM, and have actually formed a company with another gentleman, ran it for 17 years and sold it about a year and a half ago. So the thing that still gets me out of bed, beside my children's college tuitions, which are killing me, it is helping people, right? And it sounds mom and apple pie, but it really is. It's helping companies understand how to do their business better, more effectively, and to grow. That's the fun part of what I do.
That's great. So, and I ask this question every time, and this is a really fun conversation because, as I've mentioned before, I believe that the job of a business leader, as you are, as I am, as a lot of the folks watching this, is to solve problems at scale in exchange for money. The
Yeah.
most basic definition that I can think of. And so the question I always ask is, what was the problem that you saw in the marketplace where you said, I need to be involved in this organization that is solving this problem, and I want to be a part of that solution? So what did that look like, and how did that frame how you approach what you do?
So it's interesting. I've done CRM for so long, and the companies I've been associated with have been, ethical, hardworking, customer focused, all the things you'd want them to be. But we didn't solve the main two problems at CRM, why people buy CRM, right? Which was, one is adoption. If you don't get people to use it, all the ROI metrics out there in the world that you see, it don't happen. The second part of this is how do you drive performance and predictability? And for as long as I've done this, and I would have customer after customer, and I was very proud of this, and I worked very hard at it, that give us glowing reviews, except for those two things, which is the two biggest things that they wanted to get out of the tool. And so the thing that drew me to Sales Optimizer was that's their expertise. They're a training and performance company that learned that without CRM and the ability to measure what they're coming out of it, there is no ability to drive adoption and predictability, or actually predictability and performance. And so I've learned more in the last year and a half than I have learned in the last 10 years, just in regard to why CRM fails, why companies don't get what they want to get out of it, and most importantly is on the plus side, how to fix it.
Yeah, I think you touched on something that is really, really critical here. Without the ability to measure, and not just measure the lag measures, right? Not just to measure the outcomes, right? Every business can say, well, what was revenue this year versus last year? That's amateur stuff, right? you've got to be able to measure the performance of the systems within the system. And a CRM is certainly, I think it gets a bad rep. I think the idea of a CRM gets a bad rep. It feels like a task to be done, right? It's kind of the difference between a cost and an investment, right? It's seen by so many as a cost and not as an investment, not just in terms of money, but in terms of the return on my time and the value and the ability to analyze our system within systems to try to improve things. And I completely agree with you that without that ability to truly analyze the data and track those lead measures as they're related to those lag measures, which are all the different stages of the sales funnel and of the marketing funnel, it's very, very difficult to grow in a truly dependable and scalable way. So I really appreciate you kind of bringing that point. So what are some of the things that you guys do that help businesses to do that better?
Well, it's funny that you say this because I don't hear lagging very much, let alone understanding, let alone leading and leaning. Right. So it's nice to hear that. I think it's to us, it's four different pieces. Right. And it's all of the above that has to happen. And let's start with what has to happen, regardless of what Sales Optimizer does, and then I'll touch on that. To us, it starts with the KPIs. Well, actually, let me phrase that. Let me step one back. It starts with goals, right? Everybody's goals it's very simple. We want to grow, we want predictable growth, and we want profit, right? And we want low turnover and all these other great things, right? But then what's interesting is those become aspirational because the KPIs that go into and drive those aspects and to make those goals a reality don't get measured. They're not even identified. And so then you turn on Salesforce and you look for lagging data or results, and you're upset that you're not getting what you need. So it always starts with goals first, but KPIs to bring those goals to life. And when we talk about KPIs, you just touched on it. It's three things: leading, leaning, and lagging. Leading is the activities you need to perform to be able to drive, let's say in my world, a predictable pipeline, right? So it's the number of contacts, and this is an example, the number of contacts I'm adding, the number of right contacts. Are they the right titles? Are they the right types of people? And then the outreach. How many conversations am I having and how many of those are meaningful? If I do that well enough, or my sales team does that well enough, what we should see is the leaning, which is really the results of those. How well are my people doing those? Right? Which is then, if we're doing it right, should get meetings, we should see opportunities increase, we should see proposals. And then if that's doing right, the lagging, which is sales, revenue, profit, should come, and you should be able to use that to measure it across thousands of up to thousands of users.
Yeah, and you're really hitting on my like the nerdy marketer in me. Like I get really pumped about this kind of stuff, about and because it's so transformational for businesses when you can connect. These are our business's goals. These are the key performance indicators. And I don't know if you defined KPI there, but just for the folks
Yeah.
listening, KPI stands for key performance indicator. That means that if we do these things, these small steps, we will end up hitting this goal, right? Taking those KPIs from the goal down to daily actions, right? Tying, and it's almost like a psychological, whatever the opposite of a dissonance is, where your actions on a day-to-day basis are truly aligned with the things you need to do to hit your goals. Yes, it will get you there faster, but man, it feels better. It feels great. It's good for company morale, right? Of all these other things, to know that the stuff I'm doing today is going to get us where we want to go. And then especially if my personal interests are in line with those company goals, that's when you really attach a rocket ship to your business's growth. So I love this. I think that's really, really critical. And folks who are listening now, take notes about this right now. If you're not operating with that, if you don't have that OS, that operating system in place to guide your daily actions, so to make sure they're aligned with where you want to go as a business, you don't know where you're headed, right? And it's probably not where you want it to go. So yeah, thanks for explaining that, John.
No, and that's a big part. And the four parts that drive all this, that's one, right? The goals and KPIs. Two, then is how that translates to process, right? Because typically I think nationally we've seen is only 40% of all sales people within a sales organization make or exceed their quota, right? And a lot of it's because, yeah, that's scary, right? And a lot of these people are not inexpensive people, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, the two biggest goals has to be is predictable revenue and growth. And then the second part is getting more salespeople to make and exceed their number. That's the issue that we saw in the marketplace, and that's what we look to solve for as it relates to companies, right? And it's interesting is typically I've done Salesforce for 17 years. I was one of the first 100 partners on the planet. And I always looked at it a little bit backwards. It was the tool first. The tool was the catalyst. And what I've learned over the last 5 years is it's not true. It's the goals and KPIs, how that aligns to the process. Because if you don't have those two, what happens when you ask an implementer to come in? And we've seen this, we've done probably 20 Fortune 500 companies, right? And very big names. And the biggest challenge they have is because of that, and because of lack of process, everybody does their own process. So if you have thousands of sales reps internationally, how do you manage that? Everybody is focused on their own process. So you individually have to figure out how everybody works. It's not scalable in any way, shape, or form. And so the biggest thing that we help people with is to help them come up with the KPIs and process, then translate it to the tool set. And if you do it right, what's interesting is it's usually less money on implementation, even though that's how we make money, not more. And then tie that with the right training and coaching, understanding that people like me don't learn in 4 hours. It's going to take over 30 to 60 days to make this to become habitual, to drive all the things there. Those are the four pieces that make up success when it comes to transformation.
Okay, so that's another thing that I talk about a lot that I really want people to understand is that we sometimes forget. And I know we just talked about systems, and we're talking about this like it's a machine, but we're talking about people doing and executing these systems. And what does daily consistent actions? What do we call those? We call those habits and routines, right? So within the business, which is a system, you have a system of sales and marketing and operations, right? And within the sales and marketing systems, you have these uh, KPIs we talked about, and these lead measures and lag measures, and then those are systems. And within those systems, and as you zoom down, you get to what does my team do every day? What are the actions? What's the work that they do? And to build those habits and routines and to build a structure around that, right? You want to build a system of incentives and a system of management around that. But to ensure that people do that, it's all got to take place. And I'm overcomplicating it intentionally to show that, not overcomplicating, but I'm blowing that up intentionally to show that you need to look at your business this way. But really, that's all very intuitive. Like if you think about your business, if you can zoom out, you can see that and it's like, oh, that makes sense to put all those pieces together. The challenge is, and I'm sure you come across this in your conversations with potential customers and clients, is that they're so focused on the day to day that they're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic to try to hopefully make a big difference. But really, you can see from the 30,000-foot view that they're just doing things that may marginally help at best.
The thing that's the most interesting that I've learned in the last year and a half, when we get brought in to fix Salesforce issues, it's rarely Salesforce, right? It's more, right? It's these four things that we see all the time. I have a customer that got brought in Fortune 500. They spent $5 million with an implementer. They have 2,000 users, and it doesn't matter if it's 10 users or 20 users or 2,000. They've spent a lot of money and they're not getting value, right? And it's Salesforce's problem, and it's really not, right? And the challenge was the goals and the KPIs weren't aligned. The process was immature, so therefore it was focused on technology, not focused on driving goals, right? And then the worst part is the implementer gave you 4 to 8 hours of training. So now you have something that's massively overcomplicated that doesn't help them. And they forgot everything that you taught them within 2 weeks. And then you wonder 6 months down the road why it's not working. That happens all the time.
Yep, you and I were discussing this before we started. I've been teaching Pardot, which is, for those of you that don't know, it is the marketing automation arm that Salesforce acquired several years ago. I have the same issue. I see the same thing. They come to me and they say, "Well, we spent all this money on Pardot, and it's not working." And I find out, I know this going in because it doesn't take long to see this, that it's not the tool's fault that you were only using 2% of it and you were using, a saw when you
Yep.
should have been using a screwdriver, right? Um, and so I have to spend my time not I mean, the tool, that part's easy to fix, right? Because it has its capabilities, it has its limitations, and they are what they are. It's about how you leverage it.
Yep. And change management is the hardest thing. That's the hard. I joke that I'm 51 years old. I've eaten like garbage for 20 years. I exercise more now, but I didn't exercise for a long time, but I wanted to lose weight, but not change anything. And mysteriously, I didn't lose weight, right? It's the change management aspect. And I'm smart enough to figure this out, right? I just didn't want to do it. Well, now I'm doing it. But the difference of this is it's the same thing with businesses. It's when people talk about transformation all the time, and it's really hard. And the hard part has nothing to do with the tool set. It's the change management and the thought that goes into driving that.
Yeah, and I use that analogy a lot too, that the fitness analogy, right? Um, it you don't nobody loses 50 pounds or 100 pounds, right? And I've got a good friend who's actually lost 100, I think it's like 120 pounds in the
It's
last
amazing.
18 months. Unbelievable. He's unrecognizable in a good way, right? And I asked him what he did, and expecting to hear, I don't know what, some big thing. And he said, it was funny. He said, yeah, I pretty much took all of the things that I used to do and I did the opposite. And I did
Yeah.
it every day and I've done it for 18 months. And what he was saying was, instead of drinking soda and you know and beer for breakfast, he started drinking water. And it was just these little things that he did every day for a long period of time consistently, and that got him to the result that he wanted. And it's no different in business. It's no different in sales and marketing. You just do the right things, and then you do them every day, and then you do them week in, week out, and you do them for months at a time, and then you reach the goal that you want to reach.
But this is also critical though too. This has got to be the same in your world of marketing. If you don't measure it, you don't know if you're going to reach it, and you don't know where you're falling down. The most interesting part about COVID the last couple months is watching people that are used to seeing their salespeople all the time be able to interface with them. Now they can't. And now they have no idea what they're doing. And worse is they know that everybody's struggling right now. But the answer, the harder part is they don't know why. They don't know if their messaging is not resonating. They don't know where their customers are. And I was a business owner for 17 years. That's the worst feeling in the world, right? Because you have employees that you're responsible for, that you made a relationship with and made a promise that you would do the best you could to support them. And you can't support them because you don't know why. That's a tough place.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm now just remembering this conversation I had with a business owner. This is probably 4 years ago now. We did not end up working with them, and I think you'll see why from the way they were running the business. But we asked them where their customer data was, asking about the CRM, and they just gave us this puzzled look. What do you mean? I mean, they're $100 million company.
Yep.
And I said, well, where do you keep your customer data? And the honest answer they gave us was in the heads of our sales people.
Yep.
And we stopped everything and we said, look, if you work with us or not, that's fine, but fix that. And I hope and pray that they did, because they are probably, because they're used to having, sales meetings every day with their staff and getting, having a management structure that relied on exactly what you just said. Um, and so I have no idea how they're managing this change. And so that's another tip for those watching. If that's not obvious, what I'm telling you is, if we've learned nothing else from the last, what is it, 3 months, we'll call it, we don't know what is coming around the corner, and we don't know what the world is going to look like in another 3 months. So being able to systematically track your efforts, and to be able to take a mile marker. I like to have I'm a big dashboard guy. I want to be able to see, how are we performing today, relative to our goal? Are we on track? Are we off track? What do we need? Do we need to change some things? Do we need to make some adjustments? And that can all be told by a dashboard, seeing those numbers. I want to transition a little bit, John. I know we've covered a lot of what I normally talk about in this next question, but the other thing that I always want to know, and the other part of that definition of a business leader, which is to solve problems at scale for money. The second part of it is to get that solution into the hands of as many people as possible. So it's what you guys do, is to teach others how to do it. How do you guys get new business? What's your sales and marketing process look like?
It's evolving. So it's for us, it's a very personal thing, because transformation, that's what we do best, right? And we can do Salesforce.com consulting, which we do, or sales process consulting, etc. But to do it right, we're building channels, right? And we're building channels. We're doing it in about 3 different ways. The owner and the CEO of the company, by the way, his vision, not mine, is the one that is, we have built probably relationships with over 1,000 people at Salesforce over the last 10, 15 years. And so we're constantly working with those guys to help them. And it's a value add piece. I'm assuming it's no different with Pardot, which is, if you're not helping them close business, helping their customers to be successful, helping their customers to grow within the platform, right, in a positive way, then they shouldn't be working with you. And so we've been working with those guys a lot to also put skin in the game and helping to come up with assessments and different aspects to help customers for free start to get smarter about how they can better use the system. Or lately is in a virtual marketplace, how do you manage this? And so that's one. Two is we're building other markets through different sales training groups and different aspects, but it's typically through channels. I will tell you, we are also starting to market. I will tell you that I can play a marketer on TV, but I'm not you, right? So the answer of this is, we're learning. And it's, the other thing on this right now is, like, I can't go on LinkedIn without having 400 webinars hit me in the face. So we're trying to be smart about how we do it and get things out. So that's a little slower, but the channel piece has worked very well for us, right? And then it's shockingly, it's making sure you take care of your existing customers, because if they're happy, the word of mouth also gets done. And that's got to be the given, is they've got to be really happy.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And for one, or the first thing, and I appreciate that transparency. I appreciate the fact that we're all always learning, and if we're not, there's a bigger problem at play, right? If you think you've got it figured out and you're not the number one company on the planet, then there's still room to grow, right? And even they are growing. Amazon probably takes that title, and they're looking to grow and expand and learn. But yeah, to that point, there are really just a few different parts to a great marketing strategy. And they are what they are, and we've talked about them a lot. But one of them that you mentioned that I want to hone in on is the idea of word of mouth. For some reason, there's been this perception that word of mouth is somehow the opposite of marketing. And I focus a lot on digital marketing, and I hear that, word of mouth is somehow antithetical to digital marketing. I would say that digital marketing and any kind of marketing is really just to drive word of mouth.
Right.
If your customers are not your biggest marketing asset, then there's something wrong fundamentally with the business. And so that's one of the first things that I do when I come into a situation is I say, okay, what are your customers saying about you right now? What can we go and tell the world and help amplify that your customers are already saying? Because if your customers won't say good things about you, then it's disingenuous at best, it's dishonest at worst for you to say good things about you.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting about, I was fortunate enough to be as part of the Salesforce tornado, right? Where I got SOWs because somebody said we liked you, right? Like there was no business impact that was real on it. And it was easily to get caught up in the fact that there were so many leads coming in that you could just survive on it. Not only survive, you could thrive on it. But what's the danger is you can lose the fact that it's the customer, right? It's always about the customer, right? One of the things, if I've done anything right in my career, and I can write a book on what I didn't do right, but the answer to this is on the things I did right is I always try to put myself in their shoes. And if I wouldn't buy it, I stop selling, right? It's not a really hard exercise. It's about, is there real value there for them? And it's not, then you tell them it's not and you move on. But yeah, you're right. That gets lost in this digital age, but it still comes down to the customer and the relationship.
Yeah, speaking of Amazon, I think it was Jeff Bezos that said they start and they end with an obsessive focus on the customer and on the customer experience. And this I think is a great practice for everyone. I'll leave a book list recommendation one day. I think I have already, but if you really want to learn about how the titans of industry have built their businesses, go read some of the biographies. I've read Sam Walton's biography, fantastic book, and that's what comes back to him over and over and over throughout the book is the customer, the customer, the customer. How can we improve the experience for the customer? How can we get them the lowest price possible at the best quality possible? That particular piece may have been lost by Walmart since Sam Walton has left, but just that obsessive focus on providing a great outcome for the customer will drive a lot from a marketing standpoint. So that's really well said, John. As much as I hate to end this conversation, we're coming up on the end of our time. I know you're a busy man. You've got a busy day ahead of you. I really want to give people a way that they can learn more about you. So where is the best place for them to go to follow your journey and what you guys are doing over at Sales Optimizer?
I think it's twofold. It's salesoptimizer.com. No, just exactly as it says. As we joked before, no numbers, no hyphens, no nothing. The other thing would be is on my LinkedIn. It's just John Sisson, SISSON, SVP of Sales is Sales Optimizer.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll definitely drop links to both of those in the comments. And so, folks, if you're watching this and you're watching live on Facebook, please leave a comment that just says live. Check those comments for notes and for these links as well. If you're watching the replay, do me a favor and just say replay in the comments. Helps us understand when is the best time to continue publishing these articles. We're coming out with them 3 times a week now. We've moved to Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 12 noon publishing each week. We'll continue to do that for the foreseeable future until we can increase that volume. But we are really excited to get all of your feedback, really appreciate it. But until next time, John, thank you so much for joining me. And for the folks of you watching at home or in your car or while you're working out, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you on the next one.